Can you face everybody?
Okay, good evening, everybody. I hereby call the Tuesday, January 14th, 2025, Arcata Fire District regular meeting to order. Please stand, join with me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the board clerk please call roll?
Director Johnson? Here. Director Lavenslater?
Here.
Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director President Arcata?
Here.
And Director Maynard is absent.
Okay, is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, is there any discussion or comments from the board? There are no comments from the directors. Is there any discussion or comments from the public? Mr. Padula. Hold my peace. Okay, there are no public comments. So we have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call roll?
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director Lavenslater?
Yes.
Director Arcata?
Yes.
And Director Maynard is absent.
Okay, moving on to public comments and association reports. Any person may address the district board on any subject pertaining to district business, which is not listed on the agenda. This comment is provided by the Ralph M. Brown Open Meeting Act, which is Government Code 54-950, etc., and may be limited to 3 minutes for any person addressing the board. Any request that requires board action may be set by the board for a future agenda or if you refer to staff. Is there any member of the public that would like to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, how about Local 4981?
Thank you. Yes. All right, good evening. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm going to totally beat this 3 minutes. So that timer is problem. From President Lillard, okay. The activities that the union had last month, not too busy, but we had Santa at the station, and this event was well attended with approximately 30 members, employees and families in attendance. A pancake breakfast served, presents were distributed by Santa and Mrs. Claus, and Christmas cookies were decorated. This was a great event, and we look forward to doing it again this year. It was well attended, and yeah, I mean, we were all there. It's pretty good. It was really fun. The trucker parade, we participated in that. Local members assisted in the trucker parade, driving 8219, 8239, and decorating and towing the Gator utility. Okay. Director Arcata attended and greeted the crowd of 19. Thank you. Right on. I was on duty. Good to see you. Shop with the Cop. Local members participated in Shop with the Cop in Eureka. This was a great event for the community. We were working on lines of communication with EPOA and to support each other's events moving forward in the future. And last, the local members spent considerable time and effort preparing for their instructional days that were at Recruit Academy 9. This academy is set up for success, and we're excited to bring a new generation of firefighters up to our state. That's all President Lillard had, respectfully submitted, and this didn't make it to the report, so we have a copy into the package if need be. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Arcata Volunteer Fire Association. I saw nothing in the
They have nothing. I would like to acknowledge that retired fire chief and volunteer Captain Dave White had surgery, so he's recovering from that. So we wish him well and hope for the best with a speedy recovery on him. It was a lower leg injury.
What was it, expected surgery or?
After he stepped wrong. It was expected. It was pretty significant surgery though. So some reconstruction.
We'll send down our thoughts to him.
Yeah.
All the best. And it looks like we have closed session. Do we want to, looks like we need to do that now.
Yeah, so if we can move over to the conference room for a closed session, and put the phone still in there so that we can, should we? Okay, yeah, if we could.
Okay, so nothing to report at this time. Closed session. Moving on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are considered routine and are acted upon by the board with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input may request that the board remove the item from the consent calendar. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes. So the items on the consent calendar are, let's see. So number 1 is minutes from December 10th, 2024 regular meeting. Number 2 is the December 2024 financial report. Number 3 is the resolution 25-326, acknowledging the receipt of the annual fire and life safety inspection. Is there any board or public member that would like to, or a specific item removed from the consent calendar? Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion in a second.
I'll make the motion that we accept the consent calendar.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. We have a motion by Director Leibenslager and a second by Director Johnson. Would the clerk please call roll?
Director Johnson? Yes. Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director Lautenschläger?
Yes.
Director Arcata?
Yes.
Director Mayor is absent. Motion carries.
Moving on to district business. Give me just a minute to get to that right page.
Page 26.
As I scroll feverishly. The first item, district business item number 1, let's see. Discussion of board communication with state legislators regarding fire service, concerns related to mid and high-rise dormitories. This was requested by President Lautenschläger at the December 2024 board meeting. We have do we need a staff report or?
I can open it for you if you want. President Lautenschläger requested this be put on there, so I would defer to him for that discussion.
So, and I was hoping that before we actually had to do this or started this conversation as a board, that we would have been further along with our community risk assessment and standard of coverage, but nonetheless, at least in my view, the board has a responsibility to our suppression staff to try to take care of them and see that they have the equipment, the training, and staffing levels that are required for them to do the job that community expects them to do. We have an obligation to the communities we serve, including the university, to keep them informed about whether we have capacity to meet their needs in potential emergencies. And I've not been in favor and comfortable with just being passive and saying, well, they're going to do what they're going to do. So, don't say anything. And I think events down south, we have people pointing fingers who didn't speak up, who didn't, raise issues. So, and I think another element of this is the cost, how the longevity and the cost. When I say longevity, I mean the time it's going to take to staff up and how much it's actually going to cost is unlikely to come out of our local taxpayers, the local residents. And I think all of that needs to be said in a letter, and I'm not sure whether it should be to the fire marshal, whether it should be just to the university president with CCs to those others. But I think we have an obligation as a board. Part of our responsibility is to make those communications with regard to our capacity. And once again, I had hoped that the risk assessment and standard of coverage would have been further along, so that would support what we were saying. And I would hope that we don't have to decide what the letter says, and we have some time, but I think we need to discuss it. With regard to Gateway and some of the other, and the EIR that came from the university, we were sort of scrambling right up against the timeline of when other entities were initiating things. So this was an interest on my part to try to have a board discussion ahead of time rather than seeing a letter that had been sent out in response to.
I have what I think is a perfect segue. Do you mind if I?
Go right ahead.
So just this afternoon, as my wife was driving, we're going up Highway 101 and I hear a fire call from Fortuna, and my phone is exploding. And Fortuna dispatch says an all call for a multi-family structure fire, smoke visible. Staff, please correct me if I took something down wrong. I just took a few notes on my fire. And 30 minutes before that, there was an Arcata fire unit out on a medical aid call. So I don't know if they cleared it or not, but I could see them on the app. Dispatch told our volunteer other agencies that are supposed to be there to help us. Toned out to Blue Lake, toned out to Samoa, and then dispatch did a call. Blue Lake, you out there? No one answered. Samoa, you out there? No one answered. At that point, Chief McDonald was there asking, and then they said Humboldt Bay Fire has no ladder truck available, but they're sending an engine. I heard Chief McDonald say, can you send the Fortuna ladder truck? Because this is a am I right? Am I right here? Luckily, I heard sprinklers kicked in and it wasn't, but can you imagine? And then as I go by there, I'm driving by these 7-story dormitories that are gonna have 1,000 kids in them. Yeah, if you have sprinklers, sure, those buildings aren't going to fall, that aren't going to burn down. But how are a small group of firefighters with only 2 per engine going to handle a mass casualty incident or 7-story building either? It just doesn't make sense. So I was glad that this, and please add if there's anything that I missed or anything out of context, but there's a classic example this afternoon. The nearest ladder truck is Fortuna, theoretically, because I think that you canceled it, but I thought that was a brilliant call, getting them started, and I don't know why Humboldt Bay didn't send a ladder truck, but so those are things that, as we are the spokespeople for the constituents, we're here to speak for the community, and the state of California is not paying their fair share. We have a city within the city here, and they're not paying. And we're running 2 firefighters in an engine when we should be running 3, and we don't have a ladder truck, and we have high-rise buildings that the university is building, and the city of Arcata has been building to, I guess, the smaller. So yeah, I think we can't sit back. We're going to have to keep. Eric and I were on a committee before where we sat down and we tried to talk with the university administration, and they ran right over the top of us. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to say about re-engaging. I don't know if we're the right ones to re-engage because I suspect they might be mad at us. I don't know, but there's a new president now. Maybe we are the right ones because we could tell him what it was like, or we could sort of kind of give our perspective. I thought that we had when we met with Senator McGuire and Assemblymember Wood, they gave us all the indications that our concerns were valid and that what we were asking was reasonable. And then I don't think it happened to that. I wouldn't mind meeting with Mike McGuire again and asking him what changed his mind or what happened. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate you bringing this. I think we should discuss this because I think it's our duty to discuss it. And I think, you know, we don't have a lot of clout in the game, but I think as the representatives of the people, we have to at least do our best.
Thank you, Director Laubsteiger. Thank you, Director Mendoza. Director Johnson, do you have anything?
Yeah.
I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, I'm in agreement with you both. I think we need to be a vocal, a voice for somebody who's maybe living in those 7-story apartments or dormitories in the future. We need to make sure that people know what Humboldt County has as far as what kind of services we can provide, what we don't have, you know, the capabilities of our ladder trucks, of our fire engines, of our departments. So I think it all comes down to public safety, and I think this is an important topic to discuss. I had asked Chief Edmonds, are there any ladder trucks in Humboldt County, Eureka, Fortuna, anything that can reach top story of those new dormitories? He said, no, there's not in Humboldt County. So I think voicing our concerns is something that we should be doing. Another question I had, and hopefully you guys can answer this. Is this something we should have like an agency relations subcommittee on, or what could be another term for it?
Ad hoc.
Ad hoc, yeah, interagency relations ad hoc committee. Do you have thoughts on that, or is it something one person should be doing, or?
Yeah, there should at least, if board members are involved, there should be at least 2 board members. But then they would be Brown Act buddies, and they could not have discussions with other board members without an agendized item at a public meeting. But we've done that a lot, the ad hoc. And that's what Eric and I were on the ad hoc meeting. We were on we kind of split off. We were on the ad hoc group. I kind of did more on, I think I kind of pushed the university issue, and he went to the city of Arcata issue. The city of Arcata was my former employer, the university was his former employer, so we kind of, that's kind of how it ended up. And that was, Eric took the biggest part of the portfolio by far, going to all the planning commission meetings. And the university part, from that standpoint, wasn't hard because they just wouldn't talk to us. You know, they just kind of flipped the switch and that was it. So it went to the Long Beach, the Board of Trustees, and they basically ignored the letter that we sent to object to their draft environmental impact report. And during the meeting that we had, it was a Zoom meeting. During the meeting that we had, it was announced by the vice president of the university that the board had passed, the Board of Trustees had passed the environmental impact report, and that was basically our objections were removed. And we really haven't had a discussion since then.
And it was reported in the Mad River Union. This is my recollection. Hopefully it's reasonably accurate. But the article about trustees meeting said that one of the trustees said this wasn't an environmental issue, this was a finance issue. And that in some ways that's true, but nothing's been done since then. When we had a meeting, Randy and I and Chief McDonald met with the senator and his staff in Eureka, and he wanted to know how much it would cost. And when we had our Zoom meeting, he said he couldn't do anything at the legislature without really knowing how much it was going to cost. And that's partly why, I mean, I'm hoping that when the SOC is, that document is done, that it gives us at least a roadmap, if not numbers, so that we can go back to him. But we have a disconnect in that the attitude that I thought I heard from people from the university is that that building's safe, and you're saying that building's not safe, and that building is safe, and it got signed off on, so everything's fine. And then the city, what I'm hearing from city council members is the university is building that building, so should we. And I'm going.
Can I just add one point? Yes, our fire marshal looked at the codes. Our fire marshal said, yes, it meets the code, but our fire marshal does not get into the issues of, do we have adequate apparatus to deal with the fire? Do we have adequate personnel? That's not a part of the fire code that the fire marshal
Correct.
Deals with. So that has been used out of context. That's our job. That's our job to deal with the problem of, do we have adequate personnel in the form of fire apparatus and staffing?
Training.
That's our job, and that's why we sent the letter to the Board of Trustees of the California State University system in the form of the only process they had was the environmental impact report. That's the only public process they had was the draft EIR. We complied with their only public process, and then, as Eric said, they basically said it was irrelevant. So here we are.
So Director Lounsberger, do you think creating an ad hoc committee, maybe an agency relations ad hoc committee to draft some letters might be a good idea? How do you think we move forward with this?
Well,
I think personal meetings, the letters they ignored. I think if we're going to do anything, I think we should have personal meetings if we can. Because sitting down with people, I think if we could accomplish that.
so Chief Emmons and I are attending the State of the City meeting on Thursday morning, and the interim president is going to be there, as well as the city manager. So whether there's any opportunity there, I don't know. Whether he knows whether this is even on his radar screen at all, I have absolutely no idea. I don't see much traction. Maybe I could be wrong, but we were meeting with the vice president and there was no acknowledgement that this was a problem that had to be fixed before they put students in that. I mean, there was never someone who like, you've got to be kidding, we have to deal with this before we put kids in there. And somehow we have to find someone over there, whether it's in their risk management group, in their student safety group, president's office, and our legislator's office, to have them make a commitment, philosophical commitment, that they're going to tackle this problem. And part of the issue, I've talked a little bit with Captain Willard and bounced a few things off of the chiefs, and I think we're looking at 3 to 5 years minimum if you're going to add personnel and staff and perhaps battalion chiefs, and order a ladder truck could take 36 to 48 months, and you have to write a check for it when you order it. So this is not, I mean, I don't think that timeline, and we're now at 3 years since the first letter we wrote to the city. So when I talk in terms of those timelines, but I think the university needs to be told, maybe a letter asking for meetings, and who from the board and who else we have there to help. Because I don't mind doing that at all. But I wasn't very successful as a convincing spokesperson for the district. And
Well, it might be beneficial for some of us that are familiar with the history to have a meeting with Merritt, the new city manager, just so that he's up to date on it. I don't know. I mean, it would be appropriate to do that since he would probably end up in the middle of something here and he should know what he's getting into. But we could make that offer. That's,
They'd be very open to discussion.
I know him well. I used to work with him, so I know him. I'm sure, but I just don't know if he really knows or can appreciate the depth of this problem. He probably has heard some things, but I haven't talked with him much since he's been here.
I think pretty much weekly.
Yeah, no, it'd be good. He really should know. He should have some of these things happened even before you were here. You know, I think some of the biggest contentious things happened before you were here. So, you know, that's a good point. We have a new chief now, you know, and maybe they didn't like the other chief, McDonald. I don't know what the problem was. I mean, it was, you could blame it on him. He's gone.
well, part of the issue for me though is the solution is not going to come from having a referendum in the community on, in addition to the benefit assessment or a new special measure or an infrastructure bond that would pay for all this stuff. I mean, the community's going to know it's for the university and it's not going to fly. And so the state,
Yeah.
it's two steps for me. One, they need to acknowledge the deficiency and the lack of capacity, and they need to wrap their heads around that. With special districts in the state of California, they're responsible for covering the cost of that. And that, too, the costs are going to not be trivial, and that they're going to have some legislative action, state university action at a high level. It's going to involve university president and the chancellor's office to shake that kind of money loose.
Here's something here's a soundbite for the average citizen to understand. The California State University system invested close to $500 million into that city within our city here. And there are obvious infrastructure issues and the fire district was essentially not a part of that. And that's where a big part of the problem lies. That's something that I think that the average citizen could maybe understand in those terms. This is unique, and that's something that when Eric and I talked with the vice president at Cal Poly Humboldt, you know, they say they have a history of they have other cities, other fire districts. They don't pay for fire service anywhere in California, and they don't want to start because that opens up the problem. But the difference is that there's nowhere else in the state of California that the state has infused close to $500 million into a small community and not paid for the infrastructure changes. So, I mean, I think that, yeah, if Monterey gets a new Cal Poly and they pump up, $500 million into Monterey, then maybe they're establishing their own precedent. But this is a precedent that's not ever happened to anybody that I've ever talked to. So I think that they should include, and it's probably too late because I think the state's already cutting budgets, but if they should have, listen to our environmental impact report comments because it involved the safety of our personnel and the safety of citizens.
One of you mentioned that it was a financial issue. I think it's also a safety issue as well. I know personally, I wouldn't want one of my kids staying in one of those dorms, knowing that there's no mattress that could reach the top floor.
Well, it included that, not enough firefighters to go in and give it a rescue. I mean, the elevators are working, you know, like tonight. That's why I used the example. You know, we have a medical aid call, a third of the time, 33% of the time on average, we have 2 calls going at one time. So I use that example of the call this afternoon, the medical aid call in Sunnybrook. That left us with 2 on an engine in McKinleyville and 2 on an engine probably at Mad River. I'm guessing, I don't know who went where, but, and maybe a chief. And so it was Ross and 2 engines there, and that's not I've been here long enough to know that that's not, I don't know where you, I don't know where you were, Wayne. You were probably there too, but you were quiet. I didn't hear you on that. I just heard Ross. But to me, it's a pretty common scenario of what happens, and maybe it's part of our job is to help convey that to the citizens so that they understand kind of how things work. But that was only a small residential company. That wasn't a 7-story tall dormitory with 1,000 students in the middle of the night. You know, this was, I don't know how many, it was multifamily. I don't know how many multifamily, you know, 4 stories.
Was that so?
5 stories. Probably close to.
It's still a lot.
400 people in us. 400, well, still, we didn't have, if you didn't have sprinklers but if that would have gotten, if that was more serious, we wouldn't have had enough personnel to handle that, even then. And of course, you know, we rely on our other agencies. At first, they couldn't come today for whatever reason. So it was basically, we were in. So
I heard that call too, yeah. So, I think I'm hearing that both of you are interested in moving forward with this. Are both of you going to sit on an ad hoc committee together? And
Sure, if the board wants the 2, well, I'll speak only for myself. If the board wants me to participate in that again, I can do that. I'm willing to.
I'm willing also, but I'm wondering if we are the right, because I wondered if we burned any bridges because of the things that I just said. I've been saying these things for 3 or 4 years. Are people tired of hearing me?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna insert myself real quick. So the agenda topic is a letter to legislators related to mid and high-rise dorms occupancy. So we want to stick to that agenda item. If you guys would like to form an ad hoc committee, it could be a future agenda item. But for now, our focus should be who will be drafting the letter, the content of the letter, and maybe bringing it back, review and approval at the next regular meeting.
I think we could do more than a letter. We could
Okay.
I agree with you on the agenda item. That's a good call.
that's what I was asking. I wanted to know if they were willing, and I was asking to set it for next month.
Okay.
But I think we could talk, we don't have to be, because it's the same issue, I don't think we have to be confined to a letter. I think we could seek other, that's just my opinion, we could seek other remedies or options. A letter was.
What about, would this work for both things? Kind of 2 birds, 1 stone. If we set it for next month's agenda, we're creating an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee could deal with whatever they want to do, write a letter, set meetings. Would that kind of 2 birds, 1 stone?
Well, if an ad hoc committee wrote a letter, it would be a draft letter for the entire board to approve, in my opinion. I mean, an ad hoc committee, it does not have the authority to speak for the district without the board approval.
I did clarify that with district council plots today, that he said a letter can be drafted at the direction direction of the entire board. However, the board has to approve the content of it before it's sent.
But we did, I think there is perhaps some, could be useful if they would give us the time to talk with the interim president of the university and give them our thoughts, see where it goes. I know that there was Sage Alexander from the Times Standard had a meeting with them, and he said that someone came in in 20 minutes and said their time was up and took the president away. So I don't know if that was just circumstantial or not. I don't want to waste my time if they're not sincere and they want to hear what we have to say. But I would be open to reaching out and giving the new administration a chance. I've always said, I don't know if former President Jackson even knew about what our concerns, because he never came to any of the meetings. We never saw him. So I don't know whether he was sheltered from his staff or whether he didn't want to get involved. I don't know. So I don't want to assume anything. But there is a new president, and the new president, the interim president, is creating a list of things for the future president. And I think it would serve it could be beneficial if our fire district concerns got on that list, to be conveyed to the next president. The standards of coverage thing, it could also, if we do it right, it could, I'm concerned about the standards of, I think we all have an idea of what the standards of coverage results are going to come out. Just today, the call this afternoon kind of gives a pretty clear example of the situation we're in. Hopefully the standards of coverage will reflect that. But the university, whether they like it or not, has a big part of that because they are a city within our city. So I'm hopeful maybe if we could get someone's attention up there, that we could get the university to pay attention to and to actually help and assist with the standards of coverage results. I have to say, if I were having this discussion a year ago, I would be very doubtful if the standards of coverage would even raise any concerns up there. But I think we should give them a chance to see if maybe the new folks would join in on that.
So how about, I'm trying to marry everything together here. How about this? How about we put this on the agenda next month for the formation of a ad hoc committee, maybe we can think of a better name, but for now, how about an agency relations committee, ad hoc committee? And maybe at this point, if I want to call him president. I still want to call him president. If Director Lounsberger is comfortable with it, maybe he can come up with some wording that he would like to see in a letter.
Could I just add to that? If you notice, we have one person in our audience tonight, and it's one of our employees. I think that if we need to have an agenda item that's going to bring people here, that's going to show that what our concern is, that the concern is staffing. It's I don't know. I agree with what you're saying. I just want to just add more. We have the standards of coverage that's coming up, which will address that, but also we have a concern about staffing and equipment to be able to deal with the high rise and additional building. If you write it, we'll get reporters will come if they see that it's something, if we put the right words in there.
What do you think we should title it? Safety concerns?
A discussion on how to deal with, how about a discussion, come up with ideas on how to communicate with the new university administration on concerns over mid-rise and high-rise dormitories and the fire district's concerns about having insufficient staffing and equipment to handle it, something like that. And we would have a discussion, and we could even invite, Chris, do you have any contacts up there? We could even invite university personnel to come and have a discussion with our board.
So just tack on and formation of an ad hoc committee at the end of that. Or somewhere.
Yeah. You know, it might be, they probably won't come unless we kind of have does some, they usually like to have staff do a little pre-work ahead of time. I don't know, it's sometimes the behind the scenes ad hoc meetings are more inclined to want to have a discussion instead of at a public meeting. They kind of shy away from public meetings sometimes.
Just to be clear, you guys are, the board is directing staff to agendize a formation of an ad hoc committee.
Well, we haven't decided yet. We're still talking about it. We're trying to come up with some wording.
Oh,
That's going to be part of it,
okay.
but it's going to address several issues as far as safety at dormitories, staffing, our concerns about the university proceeding with the dormitories and staffing levels, and lack of anything that can really, safely respond to a call if there goes to dormitories. As well as maybe Director Lansing might come back with some ideas or a rough draft of the letter.
I can do a rough draft. I can do a draft of a letter. Have Randy look at it, and we can.
Can Randy look at it before we?
We can't, but you know what? So we really have letters we just pull out the letters we've had. We already have.
It would have to be the board directing you to
Right.
write the letter.
No, he's talking about the draft. He's talking about the draft to bring back to the board.
Correct. It still
You
needs
still
to be.
get directed to do it.
Mhm.
Right. That's what we're working through.
Okay.
We're still kind of trying to piece it together here to make something that makes sense.
So you're going to do that. So let's get it agendized for next month.
Well, what we've done in the past is Eric is our star writer. And he sends it over and then we kind of massage it together and then we bring the draft back to the board.
Can
I'm
Randy,
happy to do that.
can Randy do that before we've got them together with an ad hoc committee?
Yes, because we're Brown Act buddies.
Okay.
We just can't discuss it with you or Nicole or Blaine in between before the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And we also,
Do you know what that term means, Brown Act buddies?
Are they in an ad hoc committee together, or?
no, the Brown Act, what the Brown Act says is that you can't have board members cannot discuss district business with a quorum in between.
I understand.
Yeah, so basically, Eric and I just talking between the board meeting, we're not a quorum.
I
And,
understand.
yeah, so that's what we call the Brown Act buddy.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but we can't have any discussion with any other board members until we have the agendized meeting, so.
Director Johnson, you're being awfully quiet down there.
I'm listening.
Well, it's your constituents in McKinleyville that we're really concerned about, because there's all these things going on down in our backyard. We're concerned about that next initiative and whether this is all gonna send your constituents into the no vote. So that's another elephant in the room. I've had a lot of folks that I know saying, that's an Arcata problem. We're not gonna go for more taxes, but it really isn't an Arcata problem, but it's a district problem, but it's becoming.
McKinleyville has a plan for development that includes large buildings as well, so it's an everyone problem.
That's a good answer.
I mean, so it,
So is everybody okay with maybe directing Director Donslager to come up with a rough draft of the letter? And we'll put it on.
But I'd like to see an agenda item that gives us an opening and, Steph, a very good point about, we need to have an agenda item so that we can have a full discussion and we can discuss as much of these issues as we feel like we need to.
Or I think Chief Emmons wrote down what you wanted to include in it, didn't you?
We're gonna have discussion on concerns over mid-rise, high-rise, and then also with the formation of an ad hoc committee for future discussions with Cal Poly staff.
That would work.
Sound good to you?
Yeah, I would love to have Cal Poly come and talk to us.
Director Johnson, that sound good to you?
It does.
And I'd love to have them here in a public meeting where, they articulated their standards, their high level, 30,000 foot level standard for student safety. Because I personally have questions as to, whether they should occupy that thing next fall.
I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think they would do that. Because I think that they would, whoever's up there would say they lack jurisdiction because they would put the Long Beach.
Right. Well,
But I think it's our duty to try to reach out and have a conversation with the new administration and try to make sure that there is some understanding, especially and hopefully as the standards of coverage study comes out, hopefully that they would take it seriously and that I've never been. Originally, Eric and I were a part of that standards of coverage committee, and then suddenly we weren't, and it went, I'm going to be careful here, and we didn't object, but it suddenly, we had one meeting up there, and then suddenly we were not invited to any more, and it went to the staff level, which is fine, but I don't quite never understood how that happened, but they do things a little differently up there. Anyway, that's.
And we don't have to figure out what the ad hoc committee is called tonight. We can figure it out next month, right?
Sure, it's just a generic discussion of, like a general discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you need? You have your direction from us to put it on next month's calendar for all those issues and discussions. Director Launslager will come up with a rough draft, and Randy can look at it, and you'll submit that to staff for inclusion next month.
Or the attachment to the district business item.
I think you've done a lot of work on that already. I think we could.
yeah,
I don't think you have to reinvent that wheel.
no,
We've got a
well,
lot of stuff there, good stuff.
I appreciate you being willing to lead that, because I know you have done a lot of work
Yeah,
on that. So that makes me go.
Well,
Very good.
Before we do that, are we gonna confine that to the university issue, or are we gonna include the gateway issue? Things kind of got confused
I think,
before.
I think at this point, it should be just with the university.
I agree.
I would agree with that.
Okay, good. I just want to clarify that.
One of the things I will include in the letter is, and I'll require a little bit of staff input before it's done, but costs and whose timeline and who, that the community's not gonna write a check. We don't have a vehicle for doing that. And the only vehicle is the state and state money. So we need to act, and we need to act soon, because we need to get money to order a truck. If that's not convinced necessarily that that's what we need to do, but if it is, then it needs to be now.
Well, but you need money to staff that truck with Ford.
Well, I'll,
But
Yeah.
that needs to be in the same sentence.
yeah,
Because
I
the standard, the
understand.
average citizen thinks, well, gee, just buy a fire truck, but the thing is, the fire truck, the ladder truck is not the main expense, it's the expense of staffing it 24/7, 365 days a year for the 20-year served life of its.
No, but
I think that'll be
said
a
it more.
problem in the draft letter, too.
My interest in staying with the university is because the university is the one that's got a building already built that they're ready to occupy. And they're the ones with deep financial pockets. That Senator McGuire is the majority leader in the Senate. And so it's a matter of in my view, it's a matter of actually getting the attention and having somebody at the university say, this matters.
Yes.
And
Because there's
Or
more.
higher, or higher. or higher.
well, the president, university president has to decide that this has to be solved.
And you know, there's more building. There's a building, they have a big hole there on B Street, that there's a new building going there, and also 335 Laurel. That is planned for being torn down and rebuilding there, so there's more building to be done. I don't know if they lost their funding, but that was in the original plan. 335 Laurel was, which is a multi-apartment building. What did you say? How many? There's probably 50, 60 apartments in 335 Laurel, the old Arcata.
Their website is 68.
68, so there's a plan for that to come down with a new building to go in there. I don't remember what that is, but their building is continuing and our staffing and our budget is not. So we're gonna play some catch up here at some point, or at least try. Otherwise, we'll just have defensive fires.
All right, Chief, do you have everything you need?
So,
And I'll leave you everything you need. Okay, so moving on to district business item number 2. Mad River Station fuel tank removal and disposal on page 27 of the packet. Chief?
okay. So I'll paraphrase this just to move it along, but as you know, in November, our gasoline tank became contaminated right after taking a full load of gasoline. So we had an inspector that came out and said we would need to pump off that gasoline product and remove the tank. He also recommended the same thing for our diesel tank. At the November meeting, the board directed us to go ahead and remove the gasoline tank. I believe it was right around 20,000, 18,000. And we had about $1,200 left over from that. So we're to the point, we went out, tried to get 3 quotes. We were able to get, contact 2 companies, and we had one local company, North Coast Environmental, that came back with an estimate of what the removal would be for the remaining diesel tank. We were able to use all but a few inches of the bottom of that tank. And the reason we didn't use everything at the bottom of the tank is because it's contaminated with sediment, water, and so on. We didn't want to run the risk of putting that through the apparatus. Their quote was, or their estimate was $8,790. So where we're at this point is seeking your approval to move forward with the removal of that tank, and we're requesting $10,000 just as a contingency in case it goes above the $8,790.
Sorry, it goes over, because that doesn't account for the liquid that they're going to pump on.
Oh, there was the contaminated stuff at the bottom, so it will go a little bit above that.
Above 10,000?
Above the $8,790.
But you still think 10,000 is a safe number?
That's essentially what they told us. They got
Yeah.
4 barrels. So
How will you fuel the trucks going forward?
we're currently using renter fuel cards. Future planning though is we would like to put diesel and gas back in, just because I think it's prudent for us to have it in, if we have a disaster or something.
Yeah, because I live near a renter facility, and when there's a disaster, the lines are way down the road. Right, cars are lined up by the dozens, and then it runs out of fuel.
Yeah, that likely won't happen this year as far as replacement. There's something to do.
You know,
Anybody else have any further questions? Given?
Thank you.
Want a motion?
Yes.
I recommend that approval of funds not to exceed $10,000 to cover the cost of removal of the diesel and tank. And the funds would come from the contingency fund.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second.
Director Johnson?
Yeah.
Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director Lavenslinger?
Yes.
Director Arcata?
Yes.
Director Maynard is absent. Motion carried.
Moving on to district business item number 3. Approval of resolution 25-324, declaring surplus property and authorizing disposal for district surplus property policy. Chief.
So staff have been involved in annual cleaning at the stations, inventory of equipment. Currently, we've determined if there's district property that's no longer needed, usable, or serviceable by the district. The district has an adopted surplus property policy guideline, and pursuant to the policy, staff is requesting the board consider and approve surplus items. And as you can see, the attached list of items, it's a lot of radios that we can't even get batteries for anymore. They don't make the parts. Older generators, just various equipment that we have newer, more up-to-date equipment on the apparatus now. And these are the items that were replaced and have been sitting in the barn at Mad River.
Where will we go?
So a few different options. Some of the things we can look at selling on like gov deals. Just gov deals, right? Selling on gov deals, which is kind of like the Craigslist of government. And then as far as the radios, we've been discussing with Silky, who may be able to take the bad radios, utilize the parts off of those to make a few good radios out of it.
Any other questions from the board? From Captain Dulash. Okay. With no more questions, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I move we approve resolution 25-324, declaring items in Exhibit A surplus property, authorized fire chief to dispose said items as outlined in the surplus policy and guidelines.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
With a motion and a second, will the clerk please call roll?
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director Lavenslinger?
Yes.
Director Arcata?
Yes.
Director Maynard is absent. Motion carried.
Moving on to district business item number 4, consideration and approval of resolution 25-325, declaring unit number L8291 as surplus property.
You were the staff with me?
Yes.
So at the time of purchase, the unit, which is Logistics 8291, it's not a fire engine, it's actually like a light rescue rig. It's got a box on it, it's on essentially an F550, Ford F550 chassis. It was to be used as a light rescue. Due to the staffing and changes in our response plan from the time of when it was ordered and built, the unit has reconfigured to carry the logistics gear equipment that's been utilized by the VLU. Staff determined that the Logistics 8291 rig, which is the value of that is such that it would be more advantageous to sell that unit and utilize that money from the sale to meet current mission and equipment needs of the district. Through the Arcata Volunteers Firefighter Association, the district recently received a grant from the Berg Foundation for a slip-in pump that would be used on a Type 6 apparatus, which is a fire engine. It's a small, very versatile fire apparatus. It's staff's goal to sell Logistics 8291, use the funds obtained to build a Type 6 engine that could be used in our wildland areas and access limited areas. Additionally, staff would research an appropriate sized unit for the logistics unit and utility use. With the board's approval, staff would like to declare Logistics 8291 as surplus property and begin the process to dispose of the vehicle. It would be the intent of staff to work with Greenland Mountain Fire Apparatus to sell the vehicle, which is the company we've used in the past to sell reserve units such as the 260 was the last one.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
What do you think you could get for it?
So So we were looking today and a identical buildup, not the same company, but an identical buildup was anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. I thought 200,000 a little bit on the upper end, but consistently we were seeing 150,000.
So you'd get 150,000 for the logistics?
Hoping for it.
So we're just getting the pump, we're not getting the chassis, so we just need to get a new cabin chassis.
So our discussion with it would be we've got the money for the slip-in pump, which would then go on to a chassis, wherever we can get it, probably an F550, similar type of chassis, that would then be mounted onto that, on a newer four-wheel drive chassis.
I think it's a good idea.
And how much does a Type 6 apparatus cost?
Brand new, if you had a brand new one, I saw one today was $228,000. However, if we build one, or not build it ourselves, but buy the chassis and then have the skid mount pump, slip-in pump put on it, probably 150. Yeah.
In that area.
Wow.
Is that flatbed utility we have now too light? Is that a?
It's not too light. We utilize that for several other things, including pulling our training tower, pulling our gator around, hauling supplies. Yeah. So ideally, we would have one that is multi-use, more for fire, such as what we would be using up in the McKinleyville Community Forest, for instance.
Well, it would also, do they have strike teams of Type 6?
Yes. And that, exactly.
So
That's
that-
what I'm looking at, getting,
They could pay-
if it's a federal fire, it's only required to be staffed with 2 versus 3 on a state fire. So when we go over to Orleans or any other federal incidents, then we could do it with less people and still use it to take money.
And do it. And the part of it, I look at it as doing our share to help our neighbors too. I think that's the money is helpful for us with our thing, that when you see folks going through these firestorms, it's good that we can help them.
Over the last several years, we've been seeing a lot of requests for the smaller Type 6 apparatus. I'd actually taken task forces out where it was just me going out and then they give me 5 Type 6 engines because they're able to access other areas. They're actually, what we found, they're actually agencies that will send staff alone to staff the private ones. And you're utilizing the money. So.
Yeah. It's a good idea. How long would it take to get one? By next year?
Oh, and there is,
For next fire season?
I don't know that we would end up with them, but there's a local company that does build it. They build some, yeah, it's down, it's DJ.
CJ's fire support, Fortuna.
Okay, so that might be an
It's an
option.
offshoot of Beck, Cloverdale.
So I think he's private. He built for like Euroc.
He does a lot of the BIA stuff.
Yeah, does all the BIA buildups.
Good. Well, I didn't know that this was a Pierce. That puts a little value on it, doesn't
Do
it?
you know if it came from Wisconsin or was it?
Logistics rig?
Yeah.
Ross.
It was the picture on the walls, the Pierce, yeah,
That's right.
the Wisconsin picture.
Anybody else have any questions for us directors?
No.
I will entertain a motion in a second then.
I will make the motion that we adopt resolution 325, moving disposal.
Hold on one sec.
Oh, you take a time out? Did you get the second, or does Randy need to make that?
I'll second.
Motion in a second?
Director Johnson? Yes. Director Mendoza?
Yes.
Director Lavensberger?
Yes.
Director Arcana?
Yes.
Director Mayor is absent, motion carries.
Let's see, moving on to correspondence and communications. First, we have public correspondence, several holiday greeting cards we received. I'm not going to go through each one, but to every agency and every group that sent us a holiday greeting card, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Did we send out Christmas cards? Okay, good. So thank you for all those wonderful thoughts. We even got one from the Truckers Christmas Parade. Outgoing correspondence. Provided from the Kinneville Vegetation Treatment Project Phase 1 application, Cal Fire's Forest Health Grant Program for wildfire reduction. Chief Evans, is there anything you want to say about that?
No, we're just supportive of it behind the services district, the community forest that's behind the, Murray Road area. We go up there quite a bit for various calls, whether it's people mountain biking, horseback riding, different things. So, we definitely see that they can use the funds to do some work out there, trails, signage, things like that. So we definitely want to support that.
Thank you. And moving on to committee reports. First, we have the Fire Station Ad Hoc Committee, myself and Director Maynard. We have nothing to report. We haven't had anything to report for a while. Look at the possibility or the necessity whether we need to move to the Arcata or the Bayside area. I was kind of going to ask the rest of the board, do we think we should keep it or discuss dissolving this ad hoc committee?
I feel like we can probably dissolve it considering that we've purchased the Arcata station.
I would agree.
I would agree.
What do we need to do that?
It'll have to be an agenda item next month.
The AVFA Local 491 and Arcata Fire Protection District Relations Ad Hoc Committee, Director Maynard is not present. The fiscal year 2024-25 Budget Committee, Directors Johnson and Lounsbeck.
Nothing to report.
Just so I can suggest that we might want to put it on your radar, though, that we'll be looking at mid-year next month, I believe, is what we're talking about. Nothing yet, obviously, but next month, in February. How are you going?
I'll be gone for 2 weeks, so can we do it in March?
Yeah.
So I'll send you my schedule. And I'll miss the March meeting.
Oh, well, we can do it when I get back at the end of February. I'll be back. So coming back the 21st, well, I'll be back in Humboldt that Monday. So if you want to squeeze it in the week of the 24th through the 28th, unless you have zero availability for March, or are you going skiing?
Yeah, I'm going skiing. Well, no, I'm back. Yeah, I'm going skiing. I'm not going to be at our March meeting. I miss our March
Okay, so
meeting.
let's shoot for the 28th.
Yeah, I'll be out of town then, but I think we should do it, have the two of you meet at the station and then just do a Zoom connection. And I can schedule it for the afternoon and I'll be back. On a Zoom call. I've done a bunch of that. I do not mind doing that.
No, too much fun at the lodge.
And the Chiefs Evaluation Committee, Directors Lounsbeck and Mendoza.
Nothing to report.
And this was actually one that I had a quick conversation with the chief about. And typically, there's been a couple, typically it's been like president and vice president that were on that committee. And then last year, we didn't do an evaluation because we were hiring the chief. And I was the president, and then Director Mendoza us come up with the protocol and everything we did around what we were going to handle. And in a conversation with the chief, I suggested that we have as a standing practice that the president and the past president serve as the ad hoc committee to lead that, with the idea that those were the two board members that interacted each month with the chief when he put together his board meeting.
Well, that would be a new agenda item.
However, we have to bring that up. So,
So we can agendize it for next month? Is that what you're-
When is your evaluation?
May?
We start the process, I believe, in May.
And I remember we talked about it, it's
Started before
it's
that.
the same review as, what you and I learned about in class.
I mean, we put together a letter and a whole process
Yes,
when shortly after he was hired.
yes, I remember that, yeah.
Somebody's got that figured out somewhere.
I've got it in the book, 'cause I took the same class you did. So can we agendize that for I guess, changing the members of that committee?
Yep.
That sounds like good. I just wasn't sure what to title it. Fire chief's monthly report.
Sure. Well, as you know, even though everybody's aware of it, it was part of our December activities. The sale of the Arcata Fire Station was completed, including the title transfer. So, okay, we're there now. I received the technical review of the standard assessment draft last week. Staff are currently reviewing, and the identified staff members from the city of Arcata and Cal Poly were also given the link to review it. Anticipated to be 2 to 3 weeks to review and comment on it, and it goes back to them. And then they would produce the first draft of the full administrative review, report after that, so.
Before you leave that, can I just say one thing? I understand that when we get something like that, it's public. And I understand the reasoning for it not going to the board, going out to the different staff level first. But I would ask that the board get enough time to review that before it gets out there. And I'm not saying, and that might be having more than one meeting. That might be accomplished by having expecting to have more than one meeting, as you know, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever meetings planned to discuss that, so that we have enough time to. I don't want to make it go long, but I want us to be, since this is a Arcata Fire District issue, and it's going out to these other agencies, one of which has kind of been thrown some countermeasures in our path. I would like us to have enough time to discuss that at our meetings, and also have opportunities for our constituents to come and while we have that discussion. Just a thought.
Well, okay, so that was one of the things that he tried to advise, was make sure it's only being distributed to the representatives that were part of the
I understand that.
steering committee and everything.
Process is done. I'm hoping it will be more than just one at the meeting to our board, have our board look at it for one meeting and then just do whatever. I think as a process, I'd like to start trying to involve some community people, put it out there, say the board's discussing this. At least if some people will come, and it gives us time to get out and talk to our constituents.
Right.
With whatever those results are. We think we know what, I just, does that make sense? I just don't want it to go too fast.
No, I don't.
I have a question here too, just about timeline and a little bit about process. So there's staff, whether it's the 3 of you or just part of you, I don't really need to know, but you're looking at it now and you're going to make comments. The university can make comments, the city can make comments, and then AP Triton is going to edit what they've done now and And so this is a technical draft, and they're gonna have an administrative draft. And so the question is, how long do you think it'll be between the time you guys have 3 weeks with it?
He said 2 to 3 weeks for no, all of us that are looking at it. So all three entities that are looking at it right now, they're saying 2 to 3 weeks to review the technical.
Right. And then how long will it be, the turnaround be?
He didn't give an exact time on that, but my impression was probably 2 to 3 weeks after that, we would get the admin draft back.
Right, and then so that's 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then how is that administrative draft looked at by the board members, given the Brown Act?
So what he said at that point, and I'm trying to go from memory here, what he said at that point is once we get that administrative draft back, rarely are there any changes to it at that point. And then he said what he would recommend that we schedule a board meeting where he can come up after you reviewed it and everything, but, so you would have the draft to review. And he would come up and do any presentation that we wanted to the board and answer any questions. And then the board would decide where to go from there. Just in discussions with them, he felt that it would be wise for us to do a three-agency board, kind of a joint board, council board, I don't know what you call it, or Cal Poly.
So he's anticipating that we won't have any recommended changes or questions or.
He said his words were, rarely are there any changes once it gets to the administrative draft.
Would our board need to adopt it, or is we just gonna say, here it is, take it? Will it be presented?
I would recommend you would adopt it.
Okay, I mean, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's gonna go through a lot of.
It's gonna be our roadmap, so.
Right, it is. And at the end of the day, this is an Arcata Fire District issue. So I just want to make sure that our board has enough time to look at it and enough time for our constituents to be able to comment. And get some mileage out of it too, because I think there's hopefully some important information there that our public needs to hear. So however you present it, I just was hoping that rather than throw it in that we have, that this goes at least a couple of meetings so we can get that fire.
I think the board
Get that out there.
can set that schedule.
Well, SNAP does really. You guys we kind of follow your lead on that. So I'm just throwing that in there as you figure out the logistics.
Sure. We can call them workshops if you need to. That's a workshop.
Yeah. And that's one of your, it was one of the items on your list.
So my goals.
Yeah, one of your goals was, I mean, to sort of answer Randy's question, one of your goals was to bring us a recommendation from the study for us to adopt, so.
So in that case, that has to be done by May.
No,
In the process.
I mean, we would hope to have done it before Thanksgiving.
Right.
May of what year, you know? I mean, that's a complicated thing, and I don't expect that to be over the night, you know. It's just gonna present, it's gonna hopefully define some problems. It's gonna take us some time to figure out.
It's about a 250-page document.
I hope there's some good stuff in there, not just filler.
Okay, move on. Okay. All right, so notable training. Cal Poly Humboldt has made available 4 buildings that are slated for demolition. The engine companies. Oh, I'm sorry. No, shame on me. I got ahead of myself. Obviously, we hired a new business manager in December. Lee came on board and she hit the ground running, and she has a tremendous amount of not clerical, but city clerk experience. And she's already kept me from stepping in it too bad. So I appreciate that. Obviously, I touched on the standards of cover. Thank you, Ross, for correcting me on that. Cal Poly Humboldt has made available 4 buildings that are slated for demolition. The engine companies have been utilizing them for training on search and rescue techniques and will be utilizing them for additional destructive training. I believe we've had the recruits out there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's going well. It's, how fortuitous to have it. The timing was great.
Yeah.
It's been really nice to bring them on with that. Thank you.
Incident activity, we've had several accidents in December, motorcycle accident 101. Obviously, the big event in December, December 5th was the earthquake response. Additional equipment was staffed by recalled career staff and BLU. Damage assessment was performed within the district. BLU members assisted in the Department Operations Center with call taking and updating information for social media. We have had a number of, we had a medical rescue up in the Sunny Gray section of the Arcata Community Forest. And if I remember right, that was, were you on that one?
I believe I was on that one.
It was an extended call. I do remember that. It took a while. It was vicious. So talking about the importance of alarms, Engine 8217 called to investigate a fire alarm activation at a residence in Arcata. They arrived and found that a vacant residence that was being remodeled for being reoccupied or rented was a trash bag was left on a heater vent and had caught on fire, so it smoked up the place. Had car fire. Again, Bayside cutoff. It just seems to be getting more and more accidents out there with all the work that's going on at Indianola. More traffic's trying to cut across there. We did have a debris fire with an arrest. Where was this one? There. Yeah, it was, we had someone that lit a fire and so the sheriff's office was there to assist with the arrest of that. So we've had a couple now.
Unrelated bad deeds. That's a new one, huh? That's a good way to say it.
I mean, what kind of chips were they throwing?
I know. We did have a surf rescue on the 23rd. That was a pretty intense call for everybody. It started out as Moonstone, Clam Beach area. Ross was already on a call with a rollover traffic collision on 101. So we were already drawn down on resources. We had resources coming from everywhere. 3 people had been swept off of Moonstone Beach and they ended up back on shore, fortunately, self-rescued at Clam Beach. The sheriff's office was able to go out and pick them up in their pickup. Chief Peabody had retrieved the John Deere Gator in the event that they needed to go further. Fortunately, they didn't, and we were there to assist with medical once they brought it back in. That had so much potential to be a very tragic incident.
Sneak through it?
Yeah, it was like, they were 25-foot waves that day, and they had gone down a bunch of roads. We went to Humboldt, and this one will give me flashbacks. We went to Humboldt Bay Fire for a commercial fire on Jacobs Avenue. As soon as I saw the address, I started sweating because it was one of the last fires I had at Humboldt Bay Fire was John's wrecking yard.
I was gonna say, it looked like it's on fire.
Yeah. So we had that again. We went over there to assist with it. They did have some injuries on that one, as well, not their personnel, but civilian injuries. Humboldt Bay Fire's had some pretty significant events lately, and we've been there with them assisting on those. And then we had electrical box that apparently had exploding, and I think it was pretty significant arcing. Yeah. So we've had auto aid, mutual aid 4 times, and we've received it twice. And as you can see, we're holding steady at 30% roughly on the overlapping calls for us. And our code 3 average response time is still holding at 4 minutes, 17 seconds. So we're still doing well there. And we had 6 fires, 172 medicals, and a total of about 311. Obviously, there's some good intent calls, service calls in there. And City of Arcata was 53% of our calls, McKinleyville was 38%, and with the other outlying areas, Bayside being 4%, and the other areas being 1 each. Our reserve Ferrara was out of service from the 18th of November till January 2nd, and it's went out of service again too. But it's becoming problematic, but we're making the repairs as we can. Had tires replaced on it, and we received 2 new multi-gas meters because our others were ceasing to function. Fire inspections, been very active. I will add in, as of today, we hired a part-time fire inspector. Some of you probably know him, Bill Walzer. He's coming back part-time to help us get through on the R1s, R2s, and school inspections. I think,
What's going on with our social media performance?
so, you want to touch on that?
It's in the process of being rebuilt.
Okay.
And I am not a social media person. So as we, actually on Thursday, we have a meeting with a couple of our volunteer logistics units, Annalie and Nazi Jabbat. And we are going to rebuild and stand that program up to, hopefully to include some new ideas.
Okay, cool.
We're
Best of luck.
hopeful we can start doing some weekly public education video snippets.
Okay.
And you have Nazi helping.
That opportunity has arisen and we are going to take full advantage of that.
Yes, that's a good catch.
Are you gonna upload it to our YouTube channel?
It's going to include YouTube, hopefully, and, yep, Instagram, Book of the Face, all of the things.
No TikTok though, it's going away.
TikTok is not, no, if we can get into the YouTube again, that'll be good.
We did start our, not in here because it didn't start till January, but we have started our courtesy inspections with the engine companies. So some have been out doing a few already.
Yeah, the academies.
But I
Little
was
rough,
saying with
yeah.
the academy, that kind of took away from the time to be able to do it. But it's out there and they've started. So. I think that's all I got from the chief's report. Oh, water tender 8258 is down in Los Angeles on the Palisades fire. Captain Gibbs and Captain Allen, they left on Saturday evening, stopped in Vallejo to meet up with other units, merged with them, and they allowed them to bed down. I think it was at one of the fire stations, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, they the next morning, they continued on to the Palisades area and have been actively working the fire. So we had been called initially for an engine, but it would drop us below our minimum staff if we did that. So when the offer or the request came to staff a water tender, I'm like, I can do 2 people, I just can't do 3 people. So we're doing our part the best we can. It's a long ride and a big water.
How long did it take to get down there?
Well, let's see. So they left at 5, they got to Vallejo at midnight. So what is that, 7 hours? And then they left at 6 and got 6 a.m. and then got to Los Angeles, I believe it was 5 p.m. So another 11 hours, so 17 hours of driving time. And I got a video of about 30 seconds and it made my kidneys hurt.
Yeah.
Right. But they're doing well. There are 3 other local government Humboldt units down there. Fortuna Fire has 2 engines or units down there. I'm not sure which ones. And then Humboldt Bay Fire has one down there as well. I've been in contact with all those folks and it's very intense. And the fire or the winds started back up again today. It's like 70 to 80 miles an hour. Yes. You know, all things considered, we need to be thinking of them. They're in some pretty treacherous conditions right now.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on to director matters. Do any directors have any comments or topics they would like to discuss at this time, keeping in mind that no action will be taken on topics discussed at this time? However, a director may ask the president to agendize a future topic.
I have an item. The vehicle replacement policy, I brought this up in the past. I think there's so many shells in there that I think we're painting ourselves into a corner. You know, for instance, water tenders shall be replaced after 25 years of frontline service. What if we can't? You know, and I mean, this one's getting close. Remember sending it to Los Angeles? Isn't it 25 years old? It's getting pretty.
It's real close to it.
And it works.
25 years old.
And it can run to Los Angeles, but are we gonna just get rid of it? Because that's just one example, and, support vehicles will only go 100,000 miles. I know we're over on some, but, to me, I think you could put some shoulds in there and give yourself some wiggle room, because when you say shall, you gotta do it. And if you don't do it, then you're violating your policy.
Great comment. We currently have a policy review committee that's working its way through most of our policies. President Arcata identified another one that confused both of us with some language. And so, yes, there's many that we're adding to the list and revising. And I've never been a proponent of shalls or wills. It's always been the should and may kind of thing, not always, but you know.
The other thing is that, especially like, for admin vehicles, they're assigned to specific people. So I would hope that you guys can run your individually assigned vehicles more than 100,000 miles, unless there's something wrong with them, obviously. But I know when you have fleet vehicles, a lot of different people driving them, they're hard and they don't last this long by any means. Just a thought. Just a comment. That's it.
Are you asking to have that agendized?
No, I think that's a step.
We can revise the policy without an agenda.
No, that is my second suggestion to our staff, that they look at this. I mean, I know that was, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I brought that up, and things got busy and but I'm just saying, since it was in our agenda this time, it reminded me like, gee, that.
Well, there was,
Look at that.
and what President Arcata identified too was that the surplus of personal property, it talked about surplusing personal property. Personal property versus district property? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure that confused.
Well, tangible personal property is a legal term. In one of the codes, I don't know if it's in the penal code or government code, but you could look up tangible personal property, and it is actually, because in pawn shops have, they have a requirement under the law to report tangible personal property.
Tangible, just need to touch it.
That is,
The tangible asset is just something that's touchable, or is has a physical presence, versus intangible, which is like a goodwill item or.
Sky.
Yeah, there you go.
Good air.
So,
Well, I agree. Many of our policies need provision. They're outdated for one. Many of them aren't. And the language concerns me on some of the ones we've worked through. Kind of makes me cringe.
could probably run it through like a chat GPT to have it identify areas that you should
I
address.
was more about that over the last
Yeah,
2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
there's chat GPT and then chat box, but it would be able to make recommendations. There's also another one, Grammarly, which is a free extension download through Google, which you can just run off a Word doc, but it can also be used to formulate, if you wanted to write a specific tone or.
Yeah, I had this discussion with someone yesterday that was talking about, I was griping because of policies. And she told me to put it through Chat GPT. She told me everything that it will do. And she literally uses it to construct her policies, and then she just tweaks it.
Yeah,
You still have to read
I was
them.
gonna say, I caution you because you have to,
Yeah.
because it's like an overly confident teenager, like it doesn't know what it doesn't know.
What's that? Chat GPT?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it'll lead with something, and you'll be like, what are you talking about? And like, it's just like, well, listen to me, and like, so you just have to make sure that you really read it.
I like that.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it's come up a lot in banking, because, it's potentially has the opportunity to kind of weigh in on financial analysis and other things, but when you test it, you're like, that's not really.
And your documents have a lot of legalese in them too, so.
Yeah, whenever I get mad and I want to write an email that doesn't sound bad, I have that help me.
That's something I've yet to learn.
Oh, it's really worth
That's great.
Director Loudside, your name?
The only thing I have is a bit lighthearted since Director Johnson brought it up, but I was having a conversation with my 12-year-old granddaughter months ago and asking her about English, and I brought up grammar and sentence structure, and she looked at me, she gave me this vague look. She says, we don't have grammar, we have Grammarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use Grammarly every day. I tell my trainees that it makes you sound like you actually went to college. Okay, so, I won't be here next week because
You won't be here next meeting? Okay.
And the only thing I have from Director Matters is, I want to thank the people that set up our participation in Tucker's Christmas parade, is what it's now called, I believe. So thank you to Captain Lillard for setting that up. Chief Peabody was Santa Claus. And someone who hasn't been recognized is Chief Evans' wife, who put in a lot of hours building things and constructing things. She built the sides for the sleigh, so she put in a lot of hours, so I think she needs to be recognized and thankful for her dedication to our district.
Mrs. Claus. Well, was she? More than an elf.
She was an elf.
I'll tell her that you all said she should take you to dinner.
Move second and carry.
Is there a motion for,
Carry.
Yeah.
is there a motion for adjournment?
Oops. So moved.
Second.
Director.
That's how we do
that
it.
was
That's it.
very.
So if they just